Hey folks, it's Nate, and I've got a little bit of an update video for you today, and I've got a couple questions for you on the direction of the build for the LJ, based on a couple things that I already have sitting around, a couple ideas in my head, and basically some indecision I'm fighting with at the moment. So stay tuned if you want to help me out, and we'll find out what the heck I've been up to.
Try to get a little bit more to the passenger side and go around it. Yeah, cut it, hard driver.
So first, just a quick update. I've promised you a number of projects. One of them is Dana 60 builds. One of them is a JK bumper build. One of them is a cargo rack for the back of the LJ build. One of them is more content with the affordable bender. And then on top of that, I got a number of things rolling around in my head. I'm considering boat siding the LJ. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not, but if anybody out there has a TJ or an LJ they've boat sided, if you don't know what I mean by boat sided, it's where you take the place where you'd normally install just rocker protection and you cut it off at a 45-degree angle and then build rocker protection at a 45-degree angle. So I'd essentially lose that corner at the tub, and instead it would come down and sort of inward under the doors. I think it's not a bad mod, especially for something that you're trying to keep low to the ground like I've been trying to do. And I think it could help, and I think it might be great content for the channel. I'm a little concerned simply because it's a pretty big commitment cutting up the tub on an LJ. This LJ is not in perfect shape, but it's in decent shape. And there's not a lot of LJs on the road to begin with, right? And cutting up the body, I don't know. I don't feel like I have anything like a collector's item here, but I don't want to mess it up either, like totally irreversibly mess it up. And that's one way to do it, cutting the body to pieces. That all being said, I intend to build fenders, front fenders, for this thing. And when I do that, these fenders are going to get cut to pieces because I'm going to retain the inner fender liners. And I have some ideas about how I want to get that done. And basically have like a tube fender with a removable flare so that I can take it off when I'm going to go on the trails, presuming I have somewhere to put it after I take it off, which I don't always have. But whatever, that's beside the point. My point is that's a project I've got in my head. The rack. Eventually I want to do a cage in this thing. I don't know if I'll do that myself or if I'll buy a kit or have a pro do it, because a cage is one of those things that's kind of important. Make sure it's done right. I'm not a professional welder. I can make things stick together, but for safety equipment like cages, I don't know if I'm ready to tackle that or not. We'll see how things go on these fenders and other projects that I have lined up first. I also want to revamp the suspension on the LJ, and this will be something that I think is going to come along with axles. Which brings me to the first thing I want to ask you guys about. As you know, I picked up these Dana 60 axles. Well, one of them's a housing and the other one's an axle. So let me get you in a position where I can show you the axle housings, refresh your memory, and so I can sort of show you around what I've got and what I'm thinking with them. So, hang on. So here's some info about the Dana 60s that I've got. Here they are in all their glory. You might notice I have 3 of them in all. There is a single rear axle and 2 front housings. The front housings both have some bracketry already on them. Looks like somebody else had already started building them and gave up. Neither of the front housings have internals that will function. The one is completely bare housing. The ring and pinion, carrier, whatever locker might have been in there, just completely gone. Doesn't exist. There's no shafts in either of them. There's no knuckles on either of them. There's no kingpins on either of them. The reason I thought they might be a deal is, one, I got this whole set for $250 bucks. 200 bucks? I think it was 200 bucks. That's 3 axles, 200 bucks. The front housings, even though they're empty, are set up for kingpins, which I've been told are more durable, they're rebuildable, things like that. They're better than ball joints for several reasons. Whether that's true or not, I guess, is up for debate. A lot of people say ball joints, especially on newer housings, are perfectly fine. They are kingpin housings out of late 80s Ford pickups. Now, these are not the all-desirable Snowfighter front kingpin housings that everybody wants when they're getting Dana 60s, which is what the guy that sold them to me told me they were. He said they were Snowfighter housings. They're not. The thing that's attractive about the Snowfighter housing is this, if you can see what I'm pointing to, this tube, which would be the driver's side tube, this thing's sitting here upside down. the driver's side tube is longer on a Snowfighter housing than it is on a standard Ford housing. And that means you have more room to mount your spring here. Now, if you're doing something like coilovers, doesn't matter so much. All you need is a place to mount a tab here, which may be what this was set up for. I'm not really sure. The other housing is just covered in bracketry. It looks like it was installed in a 4x4 of some sort with full hydro steering, because there's this big bracket on the front here where you would mount a hydro ram. Neither of them has anything useful. The ring and pinion in this one is actually seized up. I can't even make it spin. I took the cover off just to see if I could count the teeth, figure out what gear ratio I have in here, and it's just hung up. It's an open carrier and it's seized. It doesn't move. That's the front housings. The rear housing, which is right here in front of you, is a 92 to 93 Ford rear Dana 60. 66.5 inches wide. From wheel mounting surface to wheel mounting surface. Now, the thing about these 60s is they're going to be wide. They're going to be significantly wider than what's already under the LJ. If you've seen any of my wheeling videos from AOAA, you know that whole park is full of very tight trails. I kind of like those trails. I don't want a ridiculously wide Jeep. I don't want to make this Jeep so wide that it doesn't fit on the trails anymore. A lot of people say don't worry about that. You can get backspaced wheels. Bring the wheels in some, not a big deal. Of course, then you have the hub sticking out, I would think, right? You can't really see the hub, but the hub's right here. This housing is also 30 spline, not 35 spline. That can be converted. There's ways that you can bore out the inside of the spindle on the end of this housing, and then you can put a 35 spline shaft in. Now, the problem is that, I would think, would weaken the spindle, right? Because you're taking material out of the inside. This all seems like a very difficult procedure for something that weakens the housing, but yet strengthens the shaft. Good stuff, bad stuff, I don't know, it goes back and forth. So, that and like I said, the width. So, I had this crazy idea that maybe I ditch the front 60 housing and go with something like a JK44 front housing, and then I take this housing and I lop off the ends and get 35 spline spindles and weld them into the end at JK width. Then I have a Dana 60 that's JK width, and I have two housings I can take to the scrapyard or sell or whatever, and I have a JK 44 front axle. Problem then becomes matching this crazy 8-lug bolt pattern that's on the end of these Dana 60s. I could ditch the 8-lug and go with a semi-float hub for the end of this, or a semi-float setup for the end of these housings. That makes things a little more complicated. And plus I lose some of the strength of the full float. The whole point of the full float, 1-ton full float, this isn't, I'm told this is not quite a 1-ton axle, but when you're putting it in a light little LJ, I think it's good enough. The strength loss and the resiliency loss of going with a semi-float. So the thing with a full float is if you break the shaft, not a big deal. You lose 4-wheel drive, but this hub is what's holding up your tire, so you can still drive out on it. You got semi-float and you break your shaft, you're not in the same boat. That thing could walk its way out. If it's a semi-float done properly, it probably won't walk its way out, but it's a lot easier to repair on the trail. If you have a spare shaft for a full float axle, you can literally unbolt this, fish out the broken end that's inside of here, and then slide in a whole new shaft, and you're back on the trail. So anyway, all that to say, I don't know if I'm going to build these 60s. I was really excited about them when I got them. I thought this would be a perfect build. This axle is functional. I mean, it's got all the pieces. It's been sitting with no oil in it for a long time, but I don't think that'll be too big of a deal. I believe it's a 354 gear ratio, which is actually not even as lowly geared as the LJ came from the factory. So I probably don't love the gears, which means I'll be changing the gears if I use it, which means I'll probably have to get a locker to use it. But otherwise, I've got shafts, these hubs. I don't know how to test them, but I mean, they seem solid. I don't know if that means they are solid or not. The guy that I bought it from was like, oh, you should probably rebuild the whole thing, probably covering his own ass because he knew he was lying to me about the front axles. The ring and pinions seem like they're in okay shape. They spin. They're not covered in rust or anything. So this axle could largely be usable, depending on how I want to run it. Assuming I can figure out the width and the bolt pattern. Now, a little bit of food for thought. My goal for this Jeep is 37-inch tires. And I got some more numbers to give you. So I did some measuring. As the Jeep sits today on 33s, we're going to nominalize things to a true 33 because these tires, once the weight of the Jeep's on them and whatever, you lose a couple inches. If you were going to go a true 33, the axle tube is 14.5 inches away from the ground. The pumpkin is 11 inches away from the ground. With this axle sitting on 37-inch tires, I would have roughly 16.5 inches from the ground to the bottom of the axle tube. I'd have about 12.5 inches from the ground to the bottom of the pumpkin. And I'd have about 18.5 inches to the middle of the hub. 18.5 is half of 37, right? Yeah. So, a reminder, the Dana 44 on 33s is 14.5 to the bottom of the tube, so that's 14.5 versus 16. That's 12 inches to the bottom of the pumpkin versus 11 inches to the bottom of the pumpkin on the 44 with 33s. So I'm only gaining an inch under the pumpkin. And of course, 16.5 to the center of the hub versus a 37's 18.5 to the middle of the hub. That's on a 33. So if you do the math here, if I do 37s on 44s, I should have what? 16.5 to the bottom of the tube, roughly, and 13 to the bottom of the pumpkin. So if I stick with 44s and go to 37s, which is probably perfectly fine for a Dana 44 with properly built Dana 44, trussed, decent shafts, I gain a lot more clearance than I would with these 60s. So if my goal was 40s, right, I would say no question I should be building these Dana 60s. My goal is not, or at least is currently not, 40s. My goal is 37s. 37s with a Dana 60 housing is a very minimal increase in clearance, but it's a pretty big increase in strength. Now, like I said, 30 spline. My Dana 44 is a 30 spline. Some people say, oh, well, a Dana 60 30 spline is much stronger than a Dana 44 30 spline. That's not a thing I've compared yet. I may have to pull the shafts on my 44 soon, so maybe I'll do some measurements on the size of the shaft, the actual thickness of the shaft, and then pull this shaft and do a measurement there. That should inform me a little bit. But anyway, my question is, folks, what should I do here? Should I build these things? It's going to cost me a bunch of money. Probably $2, $3, even $4 grand for the front housing because it's completely empty. To build it right, it's going to cost me several grand. To get this thing set up, dealing with this 30 spline shaft if I want to go to 35, or dealing with the width, or setting it up for the Jeep to run full width, which I don't even know is a thing I really want to do. It's all going to cost some money. I might have a grand or two into this once I get it set up. Just gears and locker, even if I install them myself, will be $1,200 to $1,500, right? So I could ditch all this, sell these. If anybody's interested in some 60s, let me know. Sell these off for, if I get anything for them, like I said, I paid $200 for these things. If I get anything for them, I'll be pretty close to even, or maybe even positive. And then get some JK44s. Build some JK44s, and it's already a decent width. It's already got the clearance that I want. It's already got a built-in e-locker. Argue all you want about the strength of the JK factory e-lockers. I've seen them on the trails for years, and they seem okay, especially on something up to a 37. JKs run 37s all the freaking time, and they're big, heavy behemoths. So what do you guys think? What should I do? Should I build these things, or should I go and start finding someone who wants to buy these and think about some JK44s? Let me know. Put it in the comments. Reach out to me on social media. Whatever you want to do. Let me know what you think. All right, so one thing I want to get out there is I've got a 2010 JK 4-door soft top that needs replacement canvas and whatnot, but otherwise all the hardware is present and accounted for. The hardware, the door surrounds, you probably want to replace the seals on, but otherwise they're in good shape. if you need a JK soft top, or specifically if you need the hardware for a JK soft top, say you broke yours, or you're looking to switch to a soft top and you can't find the hardware cheap, let me know. This stuff's going to go into trash if I can't find a buyer for it. So I'm willing to take just about any offer. Let me know. Hit me up. Either comment. If you know someone that needs this, send them to this video. Tell them to reach out to me on social or whatever, and we'll work out a deal. So, JK, 4-door, soft top. Let's get it out of here. Then we have the M12K. This is still slated to go on the wife's JK as soon as I get time to build that bumper. I did mention to you at the beginning of the video, the bumper is still a plan. It's still coming. What I have to do is get the bumper that's on the Jeep off and start taking some measurements. Haven't had a chance to do that yet, but it's going to come soon. And I think what I'm going to do is build a really solid winch mount that fits between the frame rails and then build out from there. I have an idea what I want this bumper to look like. I don't have enough scrap laying around the shop to just go ahead and build it, so I need to do some planning before I can order steel. Once I get some steel in, then I can start building. So that is coming, and the M12K is still going to get rebuilt. If anyone knows somebody at Warren who wants to work with the channel, I'm not looking for a winch, but looking for some advice on how this thing gets rebuilt would be really helpful. I just basically want to overhaul it and make sure it's in great shape before it goes on the wife's Jeep, because she's not going to need it often, I don't think, but when she does, I want it to work. Or I should say when we do, because I'm pretty sure she's never going to use it. But so, at any rate, if you know someone, if you know a representative at Warren, I have tried to reach out to them myself. I don't know if they're busy or if I'm too little or whatever. I just want to find out what I need to rebuild this thing. If they want to work with me, even better. You may have also noticed I shaved the goatee off. Well, I didn't shave it off, but I trimmed it off. There's a lot of reasons for that. Many of them have nothing to do with this channel or anything that you care about at all. We'll just say that it was getting kind of long to the point where I was feeling like it was unsafe for working in the shop here. And I tried to trim it, and it didn't go well. Not so bad that it looked horrible, but bad enough that I noticed, and it really bothered me. So I decided I'm going to hack it off. And maybe it'll grow back, maybe it won't, I don't know. I may just keep it short because it's nice to not have to deal with it. The other thing, in a world with a global pandemic, it was really difficult to find one of these things, but I finally got myself... Hang on. I finally got myself a respirator, and I don't know if you can hear me now or not, but I wanted this for my welding projects. Hang on. But I wanted this for my welding projects because I've gone for so long without one, basically using dust shields and whatnot to try to protect my nose and my lungs. And I'm just going to say it's a bad idea, folks. So it's finally time to grow up and get some decent PPE. So I got that. I have yet another welding helmet. I don't remember where it is now. I have yet another welding helmet from Yes Welder. This one was not a promotion, or this was not a freebie. Well, it was kind of a freebie, but not for the same reasons that the other stuff I have from Yes Welder was. When I bought the plasma cutter, you might remember in the video that I recorded when I unboxed and first set up the plasma cutter that there was a leak inside of the thing. We did get it resolved. Their support worked with me to get that fixed, and it's all better now. But as an apology, they sent me yet another welding helmet. They must have these things coming out their ears. The difference is this one is brand new and not a return as far as I know. So it's in even better shape than the free ones they've sent me in the past. So this, combined with my respirator, is one of the things I was trying to do when I got the respirator, is to make sure it fits with the helmet, and it does. So now I can protect my lungs while welding, not just cutting and grinding. So that may be that, folks. Those are kind of the future plans I have for the channel. Some of the questions I have for you guys, what you'd like to see me build. Now, keep in mind, I'm not asking you about the 60s so that you can dare me to do something stupid. I'm looking for actual opinions on folks that know something about axles, know something about builds, whether I should build these 60s or not, based on the things I've talked about. So don't go giving me BS advice hoping that I do something stupid just for the views, because I'm not going to do that. I'm not about that. I never have been. Well, folks, I think that's all I've got for today. Remember, I mentioned YesWelder. If you use the code SWBFab on YesWelder's website, you can get 10% off of your order. Whatever it is you're ordering, whether it's a welder or a helmet, whatever. I get a little bit of a kickback for that, so, full disclosure there. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit the like button down there. Please, if you have answers or questions or comments about any of the stuff I talked about in this video, please put them in the comments below or reach out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, or you can find me on Instagram at SWBCrawler on both Instagram and Twitter. And Facebook, we've got a Facebook community called SWBCrawler Official, which is probably the best place to reach out to me there. Go join the group. If you haven't joined it already, do it. Or there's always the Discord community that I set up. If you go to swbcrawler.com/community, it'll take you right there and you can sign up and log in. So with that, I think I'm going to stop taking up your day, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know there wasn't much going on today, but I've got a few things I need to take care of today, and I wanted to give you guys an update while I was down here in the shop. So thanks for watching, and remember, get out there and wheel.